Welcome back. Now, as a nation of sports fans, South Africans have rapidly embraced the global boom in sports betting, but the potential rewards may be outweighed by its risk to mental health, including depression, substance abuse, addiction, and increased risks of suicide and domestic violence. November is Responsible Gambling Month, and we are taking a look at the psychological and mental health effects of sports betting. For more, we are joined by Dr. James Burger, a psychiatrist and member of the South African Society of Psychiatrists. A very good evening to you, Dr. Burger. Very alarming statistics coming out of the National Responsible Gambling Program that show a rapid rise in gambling, and more so what's troubling is its impacts on mental health. What's causing this rise?
Well, thank you very much for having me and for the opportunity to discuss this growing issue in our country and internationally. We've seen gambling become a $1 trillion industry in the country, and that's been mainly driven by the growth in online betting. And probably that is become so ubiquitous due to the fact that we all have online casinos in our phones now, and we can place bets at any time of the day or night. And along that, there's been a large marketing and advertising drive to promote and encourage us to use gambling as a way to enhance our entertainment experience. So that's what we see in sports betting, which has grown by 76% year on year. So massive growth in that industry as well. And what we're seeing is these influencers and famous sports people who are coming forward and being the face of betting, and understandably there's financial motivation for them there, but that is something that we are concerned about because it does carry risks.
So, Dr. Burger, would you say that the nub of the problem is, the influencers or the well-known people who are promoting this, the excessive advertising of gambling as well, or just the accessibility? I mean, as you're pointing it out, you've got a slot machine on your device, on your telephone now, or your cell phone. Is it a combination of factors?
Yeah, it's going to be multifactorial about why we're seeing this increase, and I think particularly amongst youth, we've got people on their devices, and amongst youth, there's a number of reasons why they be more at risk for problem gambling, where people are using higher and higher amounts of gambling, spending more time gambling, perhaps gambling beyond their means, and to the point where it's affecting their relationships, their occupations, what they're doing in their lives. So people who are young tend to be more impulsive and sensation-seeking, as well as the peer pressure that's there, and perhaps more influenced by how these really positive role models in our communities are promoting it as a aspirational kind of goal to be gambling, and it's such a normalized and glamorized part of our lives these days. So it's something that we are definitely needing to address. I'm not wanting to make a moral judgment on people who are advertising gambling. I think we just need to caveat those messages with the understanding that there are potential harms.
And speaking about the aspirational and glamorized part of it, is there also, when we're looking at the youth in particular, are there any reasons of just the having to tighten your belt, the higher cost of living, the economy? Are those also factors at play that people are trying to, in some incidents, just make ends meet?
Now, that's an incredibly important point, especially in our context. And I mean, we do see that post-COVID and for a number of factors, people have been struggling. We've got high rates of unemployment in our country. We have a large group of people who are suffering from socioeconomic adversity. And we do know that economically marginalized and low-income households do tend to be more at risk of problem gambling because they're trying to change their situation as well. And you understand that it is more high stakes if you are gambling with all your available money, and it has more direct impact on yourself and your communities if that does not result in wins. And in that case, then people can often get into a cycle of taking out debt. And that cycle is really difficult to break. And gambling itself can also be linked with crime, but that is in a specific context. We are worried about individuals and families where there is gambling at problematic levels. And I think the thing that we are trying to advocate for is that people be able to identify that in themselves and others, understand that there are ways to seek help, because it is often something that carries a lot of stigma and potentially shame. So we do need to be finding ways to facilitate that. And as you mentioned, there's the National Responsible Gambling program, which has a helpline, as well as other ways to exclude yourself, to do voluntary self-exclusion from the gambling board. There are ad blockers and ways to minimize how much of this content you're seeing. But I think the most important thing is to be able to identify it and then reach out to someone who you trust.
So how do you identify that you have a gambling problem? If you're somebody watching this and thinking, well, I just do this on the side here and there, when do you know if you really have a problem?
So gambling is a behavior that gives us a really feel-good feeling. It activates our dopamine system. It's kind of our reward pathway in the brain. And what we see with gambling and other substances that can also activate the same reward pathway is when you move from doing it occasionally to doing it regularly, it can condition you, where it hijacks that system and then it becomes more of a compulsion. So often it's more about that thrill in the beginning. And as time goes on, it becomes more about avoiding the negative feelings associated with not gambling or the losses, and avoiding those negative experiences that one has. So if you notice yourself spending more and more amounts of money on gambling, having to borrow money to gamble, having to gamble to remove negative feelings, so doing it in times of distress, if you notice it's impacting your lives or someone else has been flagging that to you, those are some of the factors that can suggest that you might want to seek help. I guess the other side of that is even if you do gamble occasionally, there are certain ways to promote healthier gambling habits, and that would include setting financial limits, setting time limits, taking regular breaks from gambling, making sure to not be gambling under the influence of substances or while feeling really distressed or under stress. And then also just the idea of paying off monthly expenses first. So your rent or your groceries or whatever expenses you have first, and then identify how much money you have available to gamble, rather than it being the other way around and then ending up in a cycle of debt.
Yeah, and a very key question as well. What are the mental health risks of gambling?
So gambling is when it becomes compulsive, it can become its own disorder called gambling disorder. The general rule with these substance and behavioral addictions is that there is often comorbidity in terms of mental health problems. So depression, amongst people who have problem gambling, it's about 1 in 4 people who have a current major depressive episode. Anxiety, also very common. Other substance use problems as well, such as alcohol. And one of the really important factors is suicidal ideation. So the idea of thinking about wanting to die or take one's own life, and that is a real challenge in terms of management and risk with gambling. And what we do want to acknowledge is that there often are feelings of entrapment, so being stuck in these cycles of debt, or in the difficulty of getting out of the problem gambling behaviors. So those are really important for if you are having any of those symptoms or feelings to seek help.
Dr. Berger, I really appreciate your time and your insights this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. That was Dr. James Berger, who is a psychiatrist.